Hi everyone, my name is Malia, and I have been friends with Lindsay for close to probably 6 or 7 years now. And I wanted to do this video in support of Bryson's chase. This is my story, and I will try to keep it short. It's my entire life, so 30 years of mental illness, mental health, whatever you want to call it. So my story begins before I was even born because I was adopted. So my birth mother was obviously pregnant with me, and she kept it a secret. Basically, her father said, "You get rid of this baby or you're out," and she really had nowhere to go. So she chose adoption. And my birth dad, I've spoken to him personally about this. We do have a relationship. I actually have a relationship with his mother as well. So it's helpful, kind of, I don't have that missing piece that a lot of adoptees have, but it also causes a lot of struggle as well. So I actually have talked to him about it, and basically the story he gave me was he had just finished like boot camp for the Air Force, and he was worried what having a child not in a married relationship would do to his career in the service. So he really pushed my birth mother to put me up for adoption, and that, he just couldn't support her or me, etc. So basically, while I was in the womb, I was denied, she never even went to a doctor's appointment. Her first doctor's appointment was when I was coming out of her at the hospital. No prenatals, no care, just nothing. I got nothing. If someone asked if she was pregnant, the answer was no. She, I'm assuming, wore baggy clothes to cover me up. I don't think she got very big with me. I was a little bit over 5 pounds when I was born. So I think I was pretty easy to hide. And basically, I came out of her and obviously went to the nursery. I wasn't held. I didn't have that skin-to-skin contact that we now know is so important. I had no bonding at all. I basically was an infant that came out and went off on my own. We now know the damage that does, and that's really the basis of my story. It's these missed connections early on in life. It's that missed bonding, that basic primal need that we all have. So I also ended up going into some sort of care. I'm not exactly sure what it was, but basically my parents, they knew they were adopting me. They knew that I had been born. They knew that they were going to be getting a little girl soon. But I went into some sort of care because even though I was laying down, my neck wasn't strong enough to stay up, so it would tilt over, my face would turn blue, I would basically be suffocating. So I went into some sort of special care outside of the hospital, and so a week after I was born, they came and got me. Guys, that's an entire week of a newborn infant being on her own. I wasn't held. I'm sure I was held to be fed, but no nurturing, none of that. I was just on my own. So my parents came and got me. I had a normal childhood, spoiled rotten, honestly. I had a lot of things that other kids in our area didn't have. I really can't complain. My parents did their best. They were wonderful parents. They are wonderful parents. There's just something in my brain that wasn't right. And so around the age of 9 or 10, I started getting depressed. Into middle school, I started hanging out with some kids that they were probably doing it for more attention. They were cutting, and that's when I was introduced to self-harm, and I started doing it too. I remember specifically thinking, as I was cutting, which I actually used a tape dispenser with, where you rip the tape off, it's those jagged edges. I would saw into my arm, and it was really gnarly, nasty cuts, even pus would be coming. It was just disgusting. They were gross. I remember specifically thinking, My birth dad didn't want me. He didn't love me. And I think I specifically targeted him because I've always had a relationship with him, whereas my birth mom just kind of disappeared, which now that I'm a mother, I understand why she disappeared. I didn't understand back then. But anyway, I remember specifically cutting, thinking no one wants me. My own dad didn't want me. Why would anyone else want me? Why am I even here? I wish I was just dead. I wish they would have just gotten rid of me. Just really awful things, especially for, I was probably 11 at the time when this really took off. I did have a friend who reported me and my other friends for cutting, and of course, I went down to the school counselor's office and she checked me out, saw my cuts and everything. She ended up calling my parents. My parents were kind of in shock. I had been telling them the scratches were from my kitten, that I would be rubbing her tummy and her back legs, would be. They believed me, they had no reason not to. I did try to cover it up. I had those jelly bands, I had sweatbands, I had those goth buckle band or, bracelets and things that are thick. Had all sorts of things that I would wear to cover it up. So my parents started sending me to psychologists, and I refused to talk. I think there were 2 that I saw. We were in Chicago at the time. So I think while we were out there, I saw 2 different ones. I refused to talk. Their default to my parents was, she's adopted. This is very common. She doesn't need help, but this is what it is. My parents just kind of thought it was a cop-out. Didn't really believe it. I don't even know what happened after that. Let me rewind a little bit. While I was in the self-harm mode, I remember specifically writing them a note asking how I should kill myself, if I should hang myself, if I should find a gun and shoot myself, if I should, cut myself so I bleed to death. I think those were the 3 options I put on there. And of course, that freaked them out. I'm sure they gave that to psychologists to show them just where my brain was at. So yeah, psychologists didn't do a whole lot. We ended up moving out here to Colorado. I was 13 at the time. We moved during the summer. I made a few friends in the neighborhood over the summer. Started at the middle school in 8th grade. Things were okay, and then the depression really, really hit. I started faking sick so I could go home all the time. I was finding out different things like Tums. I could make myself sick with Tums. So then, I'd go to the bathroom. I would have a friend with me so they could witness me throwing up. That would justify going to the nurse's office. That would justify my parents coming to get me because someone else knew that I actually did throw up. Very manipulative. I knew how to get out of things. It eventually got to the point where one night my parents went to some sort of church function. One night, it was must have been a Friday night. And I wrote a note. I don't remember what I put in the note. I ended up ripping it up that night and throwing it away. But I did write a note. Found a knife. I went and I sat in my shower. I didn't have a tub. I just had a stand-up shower. So I went and sat in there. Had the knife to my wrist. I was ready to go, ready to do it. And as I started putting pressure on, I was like, oh, I don't want this to hurt. I don't want there to be a mess. So I went and I put the knife back. And I found pills. They were all mine. But I found prescription pills, and I downed all 3 bottles of them. Don't remember exactly what they all were. I know one was an antidepressant that I was taking. One was actually acne medication, and I don't remember the 3rd one. But 2 of them just didn't get along, and I ended up throwing everything up. I called my parents. I'm throwing up. Can you come home? I didn't tell them why I was throwing up, just that I was throwing up. They came rushing home. I actually had an appointment with my counselor the next morning. I had been seeing her for probably a couple months at this point, and she thought I was fine, thought nothing was wrong with me. I completely had her fooled. Yet I still saw her consistently every week. So my mom was going to cancel that appointment because I had been sick that Friday night, and I begged my mom to let me go. So she kept the appointment. She just told my counselor, look, she's sick. If you're comfortable with her coming in, whatever. Counselor had me come in, and we sat down, and she says, oh, I hear you're sick. Are you okay? And I was like, oh, it's my fault. I OD'd on a bunch of medicine last night. And she, shocked, immediately called my mom. My mom found the pills in the garbage can, or the bottles, the empty bottles. She found them in the trash can, called the doctor, told her what I had done. Doctor said since I threw up so much, I was fine, didn't have to have my stomach pumped or anything like that. But all of us together decided that I was going to do inpatient treatment. So that I went home, I packed up, and off we went to the mental hospital, Cedar Springs, and I was there for 3 days. I cried the entire time. I was terrified being there. I was scared of long-term repercussions, what would happen to me being there. People were going to judge me, people wouldn't understand, my life is over now that I'm here. And quite frankly, a lot of the people that were there were scary. People with voices, kids. I was in the kid ward. 7-year-olds, 10-year-olds with just voices in their heads. These kids had tried to kill their parents, set things on fire. Just crazy, crazy things. And I was scared and I was ready to leave. So that really pushed me to get better while I was there. Once again, my 3 days was up. So my parents came into the doctor. The doctor said, it's adoption. Her issues are stemming from adoption. So we get home and I remember my mom asking me, does your adoption bother you? I was 13. I said, no, I never think about it. I don't know if I had remembered back to when I was younger and as I was cutting thinking no one wants me and yada yada. I don't remember, but I told my mom no, and she listened, and we moved on. I was still suicidal. I would cut in random places on my body where no one would suspect it was. I still have random scars on my arms that just look like I got snagged on a tree or, a pet did it or something. I don't know. I still have these marks and, no one knows what they were from. So, I got through high school. I want to say the hospital had put me on Zoloft and I took that all through high school. My parents managed it. They had a lockbox for all the medicine. They had that till I was in my 20s. And, they managed my Zoloft to be sure I was taking it, and I got through high school. Can't say I was the happiest, but I got through high school. High school is really, I got boy crazy, and that was my way of being confident. If guys want me, then I'm wanted. That carried on a lot up until my early 20s, and it was really damaging on me. I don't really want to get into all that. I don't think that's quite as relevant. I think a lot of people go through that, mental illness or not. We seek the comfort of other people, and we all want to be wanted. So if all these people want me, then I'm wanted, no matter how unhealthy it is. I think a lot of us go through that. Man, woman, doesn't matter. So I'm not going to get into that very much. But let's see. I had been dating a guy. I don't even know if dating's the word. He was dating probably 10 different women, calling all of us girlfriends. We had been together for about 2 months, and I ended up getting pregnant. And I was terrified, but I chose to keep my baby. Adoption wasn't an option. It was either abortion or keep her. So I kept her. I knew I was going to be a single mom. I know this man was going to go away and never come back, which is exactly what happened. But, I took that on, and it was very abusive. It was a very abusive time in my life. Even though he was physically gone, he was still calling me to harass me for money, telling me I'm a terrible person, I'm going to be a horrible mom, I don't deserve the baby, whatever. So fast forward again, I ended up having her, and about 3 months after that, I really hit rock bottom. I didn't have postpartum. I did talk to my doctor often. She was the one who had managed my depression also. So after having the baby, she was really careful to look for postpartum depression, and I did not have it. I never had the feeling of not wanting to take care of my baby. Even though I myself was depressed, I still got up every however often to take care of my baby. I fed her. I never didn't want to take care of her. It was just my own depression that I've always had. When she was about 3 months old, I had texted my best friend. I knew she was living with her boyfriend at the time. I knew her boyfriend had a gun. I knew where the gun was at. I had a key to their house. I texted her one night asking her to move it because I wanted to come over and shoot myself. She assured me there's, the ammo was in a different spot and whatever. I don't know if they ended up moving it or not. I never actually went looking for it. But that's a really scary thought, and I'm sure I scared the crap out of her. We actually have never talked about it since it happened. But it was scary for me. The fact that I actually voiced that to someone else, which I have never done before. So that was when I realized I really hit rock bottom. I had actually been looking to put my daughter up for adoption, and just so I could end it and not have her involved. And then I realized I have abandonment issues. I have all these issues of no one wants me. Why would I go kill myself after she's born? Because she would have it even worse. If she ever found out my mom killed herself 3 months after I was born, she killed herself because of me. The mental illness that would have given her is absolutely what stopped me from doing it. I had had a friend who had done this healing journey program, and she had been trying for like a year to get me to do it. And I refused. I finally got to the point where I said, okay, I'm ready. And I went for it. I joined the class. It opened my eyes so much. I had never actually gotten help for my feelings regarding the adoption. So all these people had said, it's adoption, but I never got the help for it. Well, the teacher, the leader of this class, had 2 adopted children, and she had done tons of research about it. When I had told her I was adopted, she was like, oh. She started printing off all these resources for me, giving me books. When we did our small groups, I was in her group, and she just helped me so much. She made me realize I'm not alone. Like I said, she gave me all these resources, and I could finally understand myself. There was one book I read, I believe it was called The Primal Wound, and it's about adopted kids. And this book described me like this person knew me. It was me in this book. And I realized I'm not alone. I'm not crazy. All these years, there was a reason for everything that was going on in my head, but I never truly got the help for it. Of course, I resented my parents. Why does this mom know all these things about adoption, but you guys never saw it coming? I mean, the leader actually told me that these feelings start when you're 10. That's the common age for it to start. And I was 10 when it started. She knew this, but my parents didn't. They kept denying when I was 10 that it had anything to do with adoption. So it was just really hard. I really resented them for a long time. I really had to work through that. So the class ended. I had worked through a lot of issues already, but I still felt that I could be better. And I went on Google and I found a local counselor who specialized with adoption. It said on her thing, adoption. So I really leaned towards her. She also used horses in her therapy, which I had started riding when I was around 10 and owned my own horse when I was 16. I had actually, I had to get a job and save up money. My parents helped me buy him. They helped me with his barn fees, but I did play into that as well. It was my responsibility. Chose him over a car. So I was like, this person is perfect. And she really, really was. My previous experience with therapy was I basically just sat there and talked, and someone nodded their head, took notes, and that was it. This counselor, she gave me books, she gave me workbooks, she gave me tons of things to do, tons of things to think about, tons of things to research. I had homework from her. I had to come back each session. I was seeing her twice a week for a while. Every session I had to come back with everything I had researched and found out, and it was just incredible. I finally knew, why I was the way I was. I was learning how to work through it. I was learning how to cope. I really owe all of my healing to Healing Journey and to this counselor. Both of those together completely changed my entire life. It completely changed my brain. I feel healthy. I can see things in other people where I'm like, you can work through that. You just need the guidance for it, and I honestly wish that everyone, whether you think you have issues or not, I wish everyone would go to therapy and have that guidance on how to maneuver life and maneuver tough situations, because I would probably still be stuck in 13-year-old brain if I didn't have the help that I had. So to kind of wrap this up here, that's kind of my life. I could probably go into a lot more detail, but I just want to point out why Bryson's Chase is so important, because if this resource had been available to me when I was 10, who knows how different my life could have been, This is just so important, and I just really encourage you that if you see something in your child that you think might be a little off, find them help. You never know how you can heal them now instead of waiting until they're an adult, waiting until they fail and have to, pick themselves up, or they might not even be able to pick themselves back up. They need these tools. It needs to be part of how you are raised. So again, Bryson's Chase is so important. I thank Lindsay and her team for everything that they're doing. I personally have had to message Lindsay when I was going through a crisis with my child. It's just really important. So I thank you guys for listening, and thank you for supporting Bryson's Chase. Bye.